Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 58th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this episode, I'm joined by
Dan,
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie,
and John.
And we're so glad to have you with us, listeners. We've got a tremendous show here ahead of us, including the long-awaited kickoff for our Traitor Nights coverage. It looks like we're going to be running this in 2 shows, but we'll get a little bit more into those details after we hit you with that hobby progress. John, what you been up to, sir?
Okay, so since the event, season is kind of over, I usually decide after one of the big projects or the seasons are done, I clean up everything. And since I've amassed a mighty collection, I can't actually clean anything. So I had to go get a storage set up, and I've been slowly moving stuff in there over the last couple episodes. I've kind of dropped hints about it. I finally got everything that's not the next project, which is the big bridge table that I've always wanted to build, and all of my Necromunda ZM stuff, and Knights, kind of wrapping those up at the same time. And so I've started putting together what few Knights that I had left over from all the event Knights that I'd finished up, and then I've built my battle foam trays to hold the Knights kind of in storage. And then I got some Green Stuff World sticky magnets to put on those Knights so that they can stay on the battle foam trays a little better. And then the Knight Lord, I wanted a better pose, kind of coming down some stairs. And so I found out that that piece of terrain that I wanted last week was discontinued. I drove all over DFW looking for it, and then I had a local friend that had a piece rusted in his garage. So I got that, slapped it together, cut out some plastic card tiles to build up some steps, cut out some 2mm plastic card to build up the steps, and then laid the guy out. Cut all of the silly little pistons together for all his feet, and then attached all the parts for the Tarot Model Maker giant lance that I built for him that's as tall as another knight. And now I have a super lancer that stands almost twice the height of a knight. I know some of y'all have seen pictures, but I'll hold him up to the camera for those that haven't seen him. And then I magnetized his arm so that the lance that is as tall as he is doesn't snap off like the last guy did. So it's been an entire weekend of posing a tiny little guy. I say tiny, but this model's freaking gigantic. To stand upright and to stand on these steps a little better than just flat-footed like most knights are. But now that the Knight Lord is done, I can concentrate on some of the more bland poses for the Acheron and the Castigator and those other knights that I've got that I picked up in plastic. So that's pretty much everything I've got done. It's mainly a bunch of rearranging storage, getting ready for upcoming projects, and making sure everything's in order. That's been getting back to my Ultramarine roots, I guess you could say. I will give it to Jamie.
So, per normal in the soccer season, my hobby time has been limited, but I will say the past 2 days I have actually gotten some hobbying in. I have built a brace, let's call it. Yes, an English word. A brace of Sarkarians. And I've finished 2 so far, and then I've got another one. I've started cleaning up the parts. So I've done another of the new plastics, and then I had some leftover Forge World resin ones. And I don't know, it's kind of a mixed bag. So the new plastic ones, super complicated to build, but when you're finished, they're really good looking. And the Forge World ones, much easier to build, but there's a lot more cleanup on the parts, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of torn between the 2. I've also got several of the add-on turrets, like as we call it, the Arquois. And I'm gonna do that on the resin. I'm gonna make the resin turrets interchangeable, just on the resin Sarkarians that I'm building right now. So, and then I've got 4 of the new Predators that I've got laid out. So tomorrow's a in-school holiday, so that's my plans for tomorrow is to actually work on those because I got all the yard work done today. So I will hand it off to, well, I can't see Jack, but let's go, Jack.
Howdy ho, neighbors. How are you doing today? This week has been an easy week. I've put I've been working on 6 javelins for various projects. And currently I am putting together a Ultramarines Traitor again for another project. Let me turn on my camera for that one. It's not gonna load, but yeah, that's basically been me. Duncan, yeah, it's you now, dog.
Well, I've got started on doing work on the con. I got his cloak. I finally got reds ready. I've done let me think here. Most everything for Ralderon is ready to go. I'm working on him and the con. Like I got the con's legs are the white that they're going to end up being final. Trying to think. Oh yeah. I kind of got. I finished Sanguinius. I'm really, really absurdly happy with how well he's put out and done.
Justly so.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful model.
Thank you. I'm really, really happy with that. I'm hoping I can get a similar level of paint job put on the con for the Toys for Tots army that Jamie's doing for the White Scars. And that's it. Oh, and I got another hobby lamp for my desk. So that about sums me up. But that's really all I've got. So I will pitch it over to Jake. Jacob, your turn.
Not a whole lot of hobby progress to report this week for me directly. More just work around the house and taking care of things at the office. But that's it for me at this time. With all of us wrapped, I think, are we ready to move on to our news items?
I mean, I didn't get to talk about my hobby. Not that I have a lot.
Yes.
Damn, I'm so sorry I cut you off.
So I've been working on building. Building Dawnbreakers. So I've got 3D printed assault cannons for not Dawnbreakers. Yeah, Dawnbreakers. And so I've been working on the tedious tasks of fitting the assault cannons onto the arms because they don't fit exactly right. So it's not looking like a lot of progress, but just a lot of time sitting, kind of chiseling, fitting arms and weapons together to make them look cool when they're done. And I did finish up my Incendious Dreadnought, the first one. So I actually really like the pose on it. I know a lot of the time, like the Forge World one looks really goofy, and I've seen a lot of poses that don't look great. He looks kind of spindly, and I think mine came out pretty good looking. Yeah, that's about it. I'm getting ready to sit down and work on painting the insides of my 2 Spartans up, so then I can close them up and put them the rest of the way together too. So not a ton, but a little bit. So yep.
Very cool.
Now I think we're all done on hobby.
Excellent. So we do have our news items to be able to go over, and we've got a lot of them. Genuinely pretty exciting to see. The first of which is that the Exemplary Battles Volume 1 is up for pre-order. Once again, they have some Exemplary Battle units contained within, as well as Corrupted Emperor's Children and Fulgrim Transfigured rules. 112 pages total, so pretty chunky. Even if you consider that most of the Exemplary Battle PDFs were 8 to 10, that still means that we'll either get some real things kind of fleshed out here, or we'll get even more units than what we might expect, depending on how many missions get carried forward. Next, we have pre-orders going up for the Legions of Astartes battle group. Looks like 30 Mark III Marines, the new plastic Derrideo, and the plastic Land Raider. It does include a set of 10 special weapons, so it looks like those are the Volkite, Plasma, Melta, Flamer variety. So you can outfit 10 of these guys as a special weapons squad, in addition to the 20 that you could fit out basically as a 20-man tactical squad. Of course, you could always break that up or layer that depending how you need to supplement your existing army. And that also means that the Mark III kit and the Deredeo Dreadnought are going up for individual sale. It'll be interesting to see where they slot the Deredeo in the price stack. Presumably somewhere between a Contemptor and a Leviathan, but who's to say? And here's hoping that the Mark III squad clocks in at about the same price we've been paying on the Mark VI. If I'm right, that's about $80 for 20 dudes. So not too bad, ultimately. Only one command sprue in there last I knew, but...
How much is the Contemptor now?
That I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. If somebody wants to look that up.
Look it
also, we do have the Sons of Horus Forge World kit going on sale. We talked about that a not insignificant number of episodes ago, how that looks like it's going to be having 4 bolters plus 5 power armor scale approximately. Bane Strike bolters and 1 Terminator scale Bane Strike bolter, 2 power axes, 1 power Tabar, and a Terminator scale power axe. So it'll be interesting to see what the pricing is on this. I hope it's cheap, knowing at this time, or still of the belief that it's Forge World resin. Not excited.
So the current Mark 6, Mark 4, and Mark 3 squads are 80. I thought they had gone up under the last price increase, but they didn't. And then the Contemptors, surprisingly enough, don't look like they went up either. They're 60. And the Leviathans are 80. So do you want to go 70 for the Dorado?
You know, I'm sure inclined to believe it's going to drop right about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise, I think that about covers our specific slate of Heresy releases. Does that sound right?
Well, we've got that, and then there's the print-on-demand Rogue Trader. So if you want old-fashioned fluff, where Space Marines were probably closer to Thunder Warriors and a bunch of drunk, crazy a-holes, Rogue Trader's a good way to get some fluff there. It's going to be print-on-demand, which means you're going to pay for it now and wait almost 3 months to get it.
3.
And then, well, at least 3 months.
Yeah.
And then there's a new type of army case. I've been jokingly call it the sproing case because it looks like the door stoppers that go behind the door that's sproing back and forth. It's just a bunch of rubbery sticks that stick out, and you put your model in between them. But ironically, even in the photos, the stock photos, they can't even put the models in the case. Like they're sticking out of the case. On top of the unpainted models are sticking over the case edges, and the painted models are sticking up through the gap.
You know,
and as I'm looking at it,
pretty funny to me that at the same time as Games Workshop is advertising this, I saw that Battle Foam is advertising that a Cerastus Knight will fit on their Magnarack system for a 720.
Yep. Yeah, I that's how I store my Knights. Is I ordered a bunch of extra Magna racks and some 6-inch and 3-inch spacers, and I hammered them together and then reinforced it with some super glue and some weld, and then that's what I do to store my Knights. I just stick them on those Battle Foam trays, either in an extra 720 or 1520 or on my shelf. There's no way I would waste this much tray for 12 models. That's going to be like an $80 tray.
So
no in GW.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and it almost makes me wonder, like, have we officially hit too much dangly, spindly stuff spiraling off models in every which way?
You say that, but I keep adding them weirder and weirder things to my Knights.
Fair enough.
The giant electrical arcs coming off the sides of the Lancer shield, or the new Lancer I just built with the lance that's almost as big as he is. Yeah, there's a bunch of weird stuff that hangs off of GW models. I think the harder point is the fact that if this isn't holding those oddball models just right, they're going to snap at the little stress points, like tiny little ankles and things like that.
I think this is a result of people keep trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to model storage. So we're just going to keep seeing interesting one-offs here and there. Like there's a Kickstarter right now that is showing the Death Watch fly or whatever. I don't remember, Corvus Dark Star or whatever that's called.
Mhm.
and it's literally held down with magnets and like 2 pieces of rope going over top of it. So the
Oh,
rope
yeah.
attached to the magnet, and that is held onto a metal tray, which not
There's
not
another
saying
one on
anything bad
Reddit.
or anything about it. That's just a very interesting way to do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then I'm sorry. It's a 3D printed one, so you're not sinking a ton of money into it. So there's that.
Yeah, there's a guy on Reddit that did the same thing for rhinos. It's like inverted triangles that the rhino docks into,
Yeah.
and then you magnetize that. I'm like, why not just magnetize the rhino if you're going to do that?
That's how they did. It's like little coupling channels that go over top of the tracks. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Like I hope whoever backs it, I hope it works for them.
Yeah, I've got my vehicles in foam trays for my Marines, and then everything else is in standing up on Magna racks for my militia. Because I have so many more infantry, it would just fill up so many Magna racks. I just put the infantry on foam trays because they're less tall in the bases, and then the vehicles are in big foam trays as well. So just experiment with what you've got. If you don't like what you've got, then change it up. I mean, we all end up with multiple different transport options through all our life.
Something that I discovered that I didn't know you could do is you could, because I didn't think about it, is you can just go out and buy rolls of pluck foam from different companies online.
Harbor Freight also.
You can also get
Go ahead.
the egg crate foam too. You could buy. I bought Amazon. I think it was like roll up mattresses.
Mm-hmm.
It was just cardboard or egg crate foam, and that's what I put inside of these big Death Stranding collector's edition carrying cases that I bought extras of to transport all my militia.
Did you say
And
Death Stranding?
Yep.
Like the video game, like
Yeah. The video game came.
Walking Dead. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure that I'm not
Yes.
losing it at this point in my life.
FedEx Simulator, the video game. The collector's edition came with a case that you could lock on the sides, and no one liked the game, so the collector's edition was dirt cheap, and so I bought a couple extra cases for $20. And they're nice cases.
Could you put that up on like the Facebook page? Don't even label it. Just have people wondering what we're talking about. Let's say from the podcast.
Sure. I don't think that they're cheap anymore because the game's pretty old, but sure.
I'm just interested in what they look like, man. But
Okay.
I digress. So, what else came out this week?
I'm not sure. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Wasn't there something?
Next weekend is going to be the preview day where we get not Heresy stuff, but there might be some things you could steal.
I think there's Necromunda as part of that, so you might be able to get maybe some terrain or something like that.
Yep, Old World and some other stuff.
Yeah.
There's still a part of me that eventually is going to go completely nuts and buy a Beastman militia army and convert up a bunch of Beastmen. So maybe some Old World plastic Beastman will be good for that.
Yeah, so I still want to do that with like last guns and stuff from like the Ungors from the old fantasy line. I know I never will, but it'd be nice to have those.
Well,
I did play a game against a guy with 200 Beastmen militia against my knights, and they're really good at killing our armatures.
Is this where we talk about Ned's new army, Adeptus and Eptus, and his new army?
I was gonna say Jake is doing. Isn't he doing Ratling or what are the little rat guys?
Skaven.
Yeah, he's doing.
But he's just doing that for Old World.
Oh, okay.
I think Jack's talking about where we're going to buy Ned an army, whether he wants it or not.
No, yeah. It's Solar Rock. I got that.
Yeah. The crowdfunded Ned play something different list.
With friends like us, who needs to buy your own army? So I think that's how it works.
With friends like us, who needs enemies?
So we're doing like all troops, right? Just
Well, the 3K list that someone came up with, or maybe he came up with, I'm not really sure. It has like 140, 160 infantry in it anyway. So yeah, just go to town.
Oh man, that's gonna be rough.
Yeah, it's gonna be really rough because he's gonna have to paint it.
Are we gonna make him paint it by Adepticon?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes. Ned, you have to paint this before Adepticon. Merry Christmas.
It gets better. Oh yes.
All right. Do we kick it over to our sponsor read now?
I think that'd be a good time.
Yes, the sponsor read. Once again, the Heresy Accountability Buddies would like to thank our ongoing sponsors, those being Elric's Hobbies and Monument Hobbies as well. At either of these vendors, make sure you use code HeresyABB to get a percentage off your order. Likewise, we want to take this time to thank our patrons who make the show possible. Check us out over on patreon.com and feel free to look at some of our different reward tiers. These, at times, can even include the ability to get some of our merch sent to you. I know that we've worked on a number of different posters over the years. Duncan has done an excellent job spearheading those, and I think we've got some new designs on the way. If you want to get an early sneak peek at that, that's available for our Patreons.
Indeed, we actually have 2 right now that are finalized, and we have 2 more that are still under a little bit more work for the next batch of posters. So we will have 4 new ones this year.
Excellent. And from there, I think we're ready to start going over the dark blessings of Questoris Knight households. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
So this episode, we wanted to take a little bit of time to go over the different blessings that are available and kind of compare and contrast those with those in the quote-unquote loyalist sphere. Obviously, you can play Traitor Knights out of those other household ranks, but these can sometimes be a little more flavorful option, especially if you wanted to play a later Heresy Dark Mech or Traitor Knight force. We will be getting a Traitor Knight expert on, hopefully in the next couple episodes, in order to be able to get us the chance to delve into some like army building tactics. The following section is for Liber Mechanica. Any Lords of War choice selected as part of a Questoris household may select one upgrade from among these, but certain upgrades are limited to certain units or may only be selected in limited capacity. Cool. If you are not primary, you can only take a single one of these. So if you take an ally that's going to be a knight and 2 armigers, you can only take one of these, and these cannot be taken by loyalists. Hey, hooray, hurrah. First off, 80 points. Conqueror of Worlds, a 0 to 1 choice. A model with this upgrade gains the character unit subtype and increases weapons and ballistic skill by +1. In addition, if the primary detachment is Questoris Knights, then a model with this upgrade must be taken as the Warlord. If the Warlord, you gain the following trait. Master of the Household. Any friendly model with the vehicle unit type and knight subtype within 8 inches of the Warlord may make reactions as per standard rules, ignoring the usual restrictions for knights and titans. In addition, an army whose warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing movement phase, as long as the warlord has not been removed as a casualty. Porphyrion or Asterius may not be allowed to select this blessing.
Yep, and if you take the loyalist version of that, it's called a Seneschal. It is also 80 points. There are a couple of minor changes. Master of the Household says you get an extra reaction during the shooting phase instead of the movement phase. And that is literally the only change.
Interesting, okay. So both enable the reactions to fan out, both give you the weapons ballistics kick, yeah?
Yep.
Very cool. Okay, so pretty feature pair there. Next up, we've got Heedless Slaughter. Heedless Slaughter is free. It reduces your weapons and ballistic skill by 1, and for each model with this blessing, all models in a single unit made up entirely of armigers gain Rage 2 for no additional points. So if you make your knight a little bit worse, you can buy Rage 2 for armigers.
The loyalist version is called the Aspirant. It costs negative 30 points. And it says a model with this upgrade must reduce its weapon skill and ballistic skill characteristics by -1 and its movement characteristics by -2. It does not give any upgrades to armigers. This is really the one that's kind of contentious among knight players. I think it's like in an Apocalypse game. I don't see you not taking this one because it gives such a buff to all the armigers. The Loyalist version, I don't see anyone ever taking it, even if you're just trying to spam a bunch of knights, because you still have to pay that 200 or 400 point tax of 2 armigers. That 30 points isn't really going to give you much to be able to take other things. What's weird is in 1.0, you couldn't take this on a Porphyron or other super big knights because there wasn't any, -1 ballistic skill on a giant blast weapon. Nobody really cares that much. So it's kind of odd that they don't limit that here.
Yeah, that's
the weapon skill probably is the
strange.
worst hit, though. So
Yeah. Next up, we have Malevolent Artifice. 50 points. At the end of each of the controlling player's turns, for each model which has inflicted at least 1 unsaved wound or hull point with a melee weapon, gains It Will Not Die 6 up until the end of the battle. If the model already has It Will Not Die, it improves by 1 to a maximum of 4+.
So this one, there's really not a ton of Loyalist counterparts. It's kind of split between a couple of different ones. Implacable is probably the closest you're going to find in Loyalist. It's plus 65 points. You get +1. Oh no, we're going to hit that one later. Sorry. Yeah, there's really not anything like this at all in the Loyalist ones. It's definitely an interesting one. I think the fact that you have to do it every turn to turn it on is a little odd, but once you've got it on, increasing it every turn is pretty nice.
Yeah, so I guess for me, the question that I'll have, especially for our special guest, was going to be, how often do you feel like your knights get chipped down rather than just deleted outright?
Yeah, and when I play my knights, it's usually either or. Usually, you'll sometimes get a chip or two, or it'll just go like from full to half or from full to dead. Like there's never a middle, like, oh, this guy's gotten 2 wounds and he's just going to survive for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so a little dubious to spend that many points on it.
Yep.
A wise call. We've also got Encroaching Ruin, 40 points. You improve your ballistic skill by 1, and you become a character with commanding presence. Armigers with at least 1 model within 6 inches of 1 or more with commanding presence get +2 movement.
So the Loyalist version of this is called Preceptor for plus 45 points, so it's 5 more points. You get +1 to your ballistic skill, become a character, and then Preceptor says, any units of armigers within 6 inches of a friendly model with this special rule increase their leadership to 9.
So this is significantly improved, even if only by virtue of you getting to improve their movement speed rather than their leadership.
But yeah, armigers are really interesting in the fact that their leadership's 7 stubborn. So you can pin them, you can break them and run them down. The problem, though, is I find that armigers usually aren't going to be hanging out within 6 inches of something, of a big knight, because if the armigers pop, they're going to hurt the knight, being strength 8. They can still glance or even pin the side or rear armors. You will get a save, though, because it's technically a shooting attack when they explode. And the inverse is also true. When the knight goes up, you're always going to hit those armigers within 6 inches. So it's definitely interesting to think about that +2 move. Maybe if you took it on a Cerastus chassis where you're already moving a lot faster than the armigers, this way they could kind of keep up with you, making them movement 10 so they're equal to a basic knight, or the Cerastus can kind of run back and forth and kind of keep everyone moving up with them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Especially because, like, the times when you do get within 6 inches, you've probably tied things up in close combat already, and then
Yep.
your movement benefits a little suspect. So, okay, that's a really valid point there. We've got Putrid Corruption, 45 points, slows your movement speed by 2 inches and gains Unrelenting, which says that if you suffer an explode result, you just lose 1 extra hull point instead of D3.
The
May
Loyalist
not be
version of this one
going
is
to Arcastus Knights.
Yeah, the Loyalist version of this one's a lot more expensive. It's 65 points. You don't have a movement problem, but you gain +1 hull point, and no attack targeting this model with this special rule may inflict more than a single hull point of damage including those that come from Exoshock. So not only do you get the explodes protection, but you also get protection from Exoshock, and you're not limited on who you can take this on. I think this is one of the rare wins for the Loyalists, just because it may be an extra 20 points, but +1 hull point on Knights is really, really nice, as well as the fact that you get the +1, or you ignore the explodes on both of them, but you also ignore the Exoshock on the Loyalists.
That's pretty interesting. Definitely a strong option, especially if you feel like your Knights do get one tapped, but it's certainly something you do have to pay for. Infernal Tempest, 25 points, you become a character and a psyker, you gain access to the Infernal Rites discipline, and you are considered to be lead 7, regardless of any modifiers or effects when taking a psychic test. So that's going to move you to about a 60% success rate. Let's see if these are worth gambling D3 of your hull points on. Infernal Warding. At the start of any of the controlling player's turns, a model with this power may choose to make a psychic check. If the check is passed, the model gains +1 invulnerable save to a maximum of 3 up. If the check is failed, the model suffers perils. No surprise. Imperial Tempest. 12-inch range, strength 5, AP 2, heavy 1, small blast, with guided fire and psychic focus. Psychic focus says you have to take a psychic test before you shoot this, and I think guided fire states that you can fire it even against units that you don't have line of sight on. Do Loyalists have a way to get Psyker?
No, they're one that's going to be kind of close to this one is probably the Arbalister, which is +1 ballistic skill, and you can reroll scatter dice of your choosing. It's probably one of the cheaper ones at 55 points, whereas this one's a real cheap one at 25. I'm not seeing. Do you take the hull points if you just fail a psychic check? I thought you only took it if you perils.
So if the check is failed, the model suffers perils.
Okay. Never mind. I thought there was like a push and not push type thing.
Nope. Only some powers get that privilege, and they decided not to extend it here. So Infernal Warding, it's going to be a question of how valuable you feel like a bonus invulnerable save is going to be. Although, admittedly, you can double dip that with the Imperial Tempest. So Imperial Tempest kind of giving you that bonus gun, but ultimately, if I'm right, we said flank speed kind of eliminates the need for you to have multiple firearms now.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is probably one of the worst ones then. Just because you're not getting that invulnerable save all the time either. Remember, with Knights, most of the time you're only going to get it from certain angles, and you're also only going to get it either only from shooting if you're a basic Knight, or shooting in combat if you're a Lancer.
For sure. Yeah, I'm never a fan of gambling your health on something that generally is so low impact as what we have here. There is Ravenous Dissolution, 50 points, +1 weapon skill, you become a character, and you gain Marked for Death. At the start of battle, once both armies are set, including infiltrators, you mark a unit for death, and you get to reroll failed wound rolls of 1. So that's your Legion Seeker rule right there.
One's interesting. I mean, most of the Knight weapons are going to be high strength anyway, so you're only going to be failing on 1s usually. Notice it doesn't say armor pen or anything like that. So this is only hunting things that are don't have an armor value. So dreadnoughts will count, but again, you're only failing usually on 1s anyway with most Knight weapons.
Yeah. I mean, getting to reroll to wound isn't bad, especially if you have a very high rate of fire. Castigator comes to mind there. Does the Castigator still get to make the sweep attacks or otherwise have Deflagrate on the melee weapon?
Yeah, its melee weapon has Deflagrate, and I think it has the Castigator.
But it doesn't have Brutal, right?
No, it doesn't have Brutal. It's just got Deflagrate, and it's got a fairly low AP on Deflagrate. Tempest Warblade is a special rule Tempest. Okay, what does that do? Instead of making a melee attack, It can choose to make a special attack in Initiative Step 2. It automatically inflicts a single hit against each model, friendly and enemy, in combat with the attacking model's base, using the profile of this weapon. Okay, so it can swap out all of its base attacks to do a single attack at its...
Basically a sweeping attack.
Yep.
So I think the Castigator is a great candidate for this. You've got a large enough...
Yeah, 10-2 and then Defilgrate.
Yeah, a large enough dice pool that you're going to get it to matter, and getting those rerolls just to boost your consistency, to say nothing of the overall benefit of getting +1 weapon skill. I could see this one being very, very commonly taken.
I don't know about common. I think that's probably the only place you would take it, because it is a 50-point upgrade and it is only for 1 unit for the whole game.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, and it's not a 0-1 choice, but I get where you're saying that like 50 points adds up quick depending on what knight chassis you ended up scooping up. So
yeah.
Rapturous Sensation, 65 points. Ooh, that's a pricey one, short of our Warlord one earlier. No enemy unit that has 1 or more models within 8 inches of this Dark Blessing may have a reaction declared for it in any phase unless the unit's controller passes a leadership test before making the reaction. If the test has failed, you just don't get to react. It doesn't cost you anything out of your pool, nothing. If you fail, you don't get to make... Or, yeah, if you fail, you don't get the reaction. If you pass, you get the reaction. If you fail, it doesn't cost you the point. So this is definitely a little bit of a tangent. I'm really disappointed that there's multiple of these take a leadership test to react type things in the game, and all of them basically put no risk for the reactive player.
And they also only come from one side.
Are they all Traitor only? So it's on like this
Yep.
and demons and... Okay, well, yeah. That explains why that is the way it is, unfortunately.
The bigger problem I see with this is knights can walk out of combat, or you can walk out of combat with the knight, or the knight can walk out of combat with you. So unless you have a suicidal knight, you're not going to be within 8 inches of somebody. And if you're already within 8 inches of somebody, that means they've already at least reacted with movement and things like that. So, I mean, the knights you're looking at are only going to have a 10 or 12 inch movement. I think 8 inches is honestly a little too short for this. Either make it so that it's targeted or something else, because 65 points is, like you said, it's a lot. I've had a couple times where
to make the other guy roll dice, and if he's a Starties, he's gonna be lead 8, give or take night fight. He's gonna pass, and he's gonna react just fine. And that's to say nothing of units that have HQ choices in them.
Yeah. The few times that I've had multiple units within 8 inches of a single knight is usually when I've said, well, he's down to 1 or 2 hull points, screw it, he'll just be a bomb. So you're having to gamble with the fact that, 1, they decided to pick on that model only, and then 2, they didn't just automatically kill it, which is usually what happens. And then you have to sacrifice it and throw it away. So it just seems like a lose more to have to pay that many points to do it.
Yeah, it taps into all the things that I hate about the way Games Workshop has expressed chaos off and on for a number of years. So you pay a bunch of points because the ceiling for this ability is crazy high. Specifically, it's so crazy high that we couldn't balance it, and it's so impossible to balance that in addition to the crazy points, there's not even a downside for your opponent attempting to roll the dice and having to figure out how this works. If you would make it so that this denies the reaction if the test is failed, I still don't think it's worth it, but you can at least like just be mean basically and force the other guy to roll for it. But that, I'm with you. That starts feeling more and more like a spite play all the way down.
Yeah, if this was like a targeted thing, like one model, you could just pick a unit and that knight just like stared them down or something like that, or maybe increased it to 12 inches and you could pick the model, then I think it'd be a little bit better. Because then you're at least coming within range of, that way you can't run away from me before I get to react.
Our final upgrade is Formless Distortion. 45 points for +1 weapon skill, character subtype, and swapping your melee weapon for a Strength 10, AP 2, Reach 2, Exoshock 6. What knight
There's
do
a
you
lot of
want
points.
this melee weapon on? What knight does not have a melee weapon better than this?
So they all have the basic melee weapon is the Reaper Chainsword, which is 9-2 shred. I don't think that this is necessarily worth. The weapon skill upgrade is nice. I'll get that, but I don't know if it's necessarily worth 45 points to go at initiative 6. Weapon skill 5, initiative 6. You're basically slightly better than Marines. You're not like an elite killer unit. You're an okay killer unit.
Yeah, okay, this thing basically exists because the bit exists on the Chaos Knight
Yep.
that they put out. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, you could take it on one of the Reaper Chainsword Knights just to get the +1 strength kick and get a little bit better versus vehicles, courtesy of that Exoshock. But, +2 initiative doesn't seem like it's the smallest deal in the world.
No, I mean, but the thing you're trying to beat is Thunderhammers anyway, or Chain Fists.
Oh, yeah, because basically
Melt the
nothing
Bombs.
is going to hurt your front 13 at initiative, so Reach is just for Knight versus Knight, or like Knight versus Dreadnought.
Yep. Yeah, so it's I at least what I found with them that way. It's not the Reach is cute, but it's usually like, oh, I'm just interrupting the flow of initiative 4, initiative 3, initiative 2, initiative 1. Okay, now we're all gonna go together. Because you're not gonna stomp at 10. You're still gonna stomp at your base strength.
Yep. So how, just to ask for someone who's played it a little more than I have, how do Knights actually end up faring in close combat versus Dreadnoughts?
The Dreadnought bends them over and punks them.
Turns
As
out
long as it
having
has a close combat weapon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, turns out weapon skill 5 native is a big deal. So yeah, this then kind of makes it an upgrade to let you go fight a Dreadnought, but I definitely see that like 45 points is very expensive and very punishing to be able to do that one thing. A bit
You know how you fix
mediocre.
this?
How do you fix it?
You don't say exchange.
Oh, give it a second close combat arm?
Yeah, so there's a rule in the main rule book for all knights / super heavies that says for every extra close combat weapon they have, they gain +1 attack. And so I think that's in there for, I guess, some type of future proofing or vehicle building rules or something. And so with every knight, you have a base attacks of 3. I think paying 45 points for the ability to choose between your strength 10 AP2 reach exoshock attack or your 9-2 shred attack, I think that'd be worth it. And +1 extra attack. It doesn't make it like a master, but it makes it better.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost wonder if, and obviously like I'm the wrong person to ask this kind of question, probably, just because I very clearly have vocally stated some issues with Heresy up to this point. But I wonder if the issue is so fundamental that they won't be able to have it solved or like sorted out for Knights without a massive FAQ or errata to kind of up it into the apple cart, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I took a couple of dual-armed knights in the APOC game at Warzone, and then I took a couple dual-armed knights for my first couple games with knights just to see how they were, because I'd built those ones with the big tower shields. Being to choose between the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which in that case is 12-2, and the Shred Reaper Chainsword, which is again 9-2 Shred. In that instance, yeah, you had the choice between using the Chainsword on infantry and then the Gauntlet on tanks and things like that. I think if you just make this just an extra weapon that they could just have, I think wouldn't be that much of a problem. And we've seen knights before with tails and things like that in the old game and in the fluff before, so it wouldn't be that much of a giant drift off of what's known. Like you said, though, this is just so that you could reuse the weapons that come out of the knight, the Chaos Knights, but they don't include the other weapons that come off the Chaos Knights, like the weird chain gun and the weird laser cannon and things like that. So it seems odd that you would just include this one part, but not the other ones.
Yeah, I was looking that kit up, and I was like, we have like a Volkite or plasma weapon here that's just not demonstrated.
Yep.
Yeah,
you could take the
good.
The other knights, the ones that are Mechanicum exclusive, the Styrics and the Megara, and you could just call it those weapons, but it just seems odd that they're not there.
Yeah, makes this a very awkward supplement. Overall, do you, as someone who's played more Loyalist Knights or has played some amount of Loyalist Knights, do you find yourself envious of a lot of the choices presented here?
Not a lot of them. I think specifically the one that tricked my trigger was the Heedless Slaughter, and that's just because it's so good for armatures. And then I keep going back and forth on armatures. The Armiger Warglaive with the thermal lance, the chain blade, sometimes seems to be the bread and butter, the one that's doing the work, because it's the melt the lances, or thermal lance is twin linked, whereas the Helverins, they have 4 shots with their Phaeton autocannons that aren't twin linked, but being strength 7 AP3 ignores cover, or strength 7 AP3 shred, or sorry, sunder. Sometimes those just delete whole units because they outrange last cannons and heavy weapon squads, and they ignore cover, so they're getting rid of the things that Night Lords love. So it kind of goes back and forth between which armature's the best, it seems, on certain days of the week. And this one benefits the Warglaives so much.
Yeah, that's a fair note. I think the cost to a knight is pretty high to give up your weapons and ballistic skill, both by a point. Maybe ballistic skill, like if you're a castigator, it's a little easier to navigate giving that up, or maybe on the other end if you're the Acheron and you just have that big template weapon. But I think dropping to weapons 3 is pretty punishing. So,
well, if nothing else, just give it to a Porphyrion.
Oh yeah, give it to somebody who
it's
you
is all
for all the ones that they do disallow a Castus pattern from taking. They don't deny that one. So yeah, you have Ballistics 3. Congratulations. Like, your little nipple weapons aren't going to fire super accurately, and neither will your back mount. But in the meantime, your large blasts are still going to make an absolute mess.
Yeah, and the weirdest part about this one specifically is that it's not limited by range. All the other ones that give bonuses, like the reaction ones or the leadership buffs for the loyalists, or the movement buffs for the traitors, those are all limited within 6 inches or 9 inches. This one just says all of them. It's such an odd wording, considering the other ones are just on the next page.
Yeah, very, very strange. Very odd. All right.
Yeah, that's what I've got.
Any last sort of thoughts in passing before we wrap this one up?
I look forward to bringing Steven on. He and I we've played a few games, and he's played a lot more games with Knights than I have, so he's got a little more competitive mind as well. So he knows a little bit more unlocks than I do.
Yeah, I do want to go ahead and kind of tease our next few shows. So it sounds like next week we're going to have my buddy Alex on, and or maybe a couple others to be able to give a rundown for the Michigan GT. After that, we will hopefully end up being able to have your buddy on, finish this segment regarding Traitor Knights. And then after that, we're probably, before we get back into Legions, going to take a small detour into more units you may or may not see on the tabletop.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, in absence of having any more notes from anybody, I would like to thank you, listeners. My name is Jacob, and on this, the 58th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast, I've been joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie,
and John.
And Dan, unfortunately, had to dip out a little early, but he was with us as well. Once again, listeners, remember, stay accountable to your hobby and your buddies, and we'll see you here next time.